The unexpected assignment, Olivia Kane stared at the sleek Maxwell Industries tower with growing dread, clutching her sister's portfolio to her chest like a shield. The glass and steel monolith seemed to judge her worn boat shoes and hastily assembled professional outfit, a blazer borrowed from her sister Sophia's closet that hung slightly too large on her frame, and a pencil skirt she hadn't worn since her last unsuccessful job interview. "This is a mistake," she muttered to herself, adjusting her glasses nervously. As a marine biologist dedicated to ocean conservation, her daily uniform consisted of waterproof gear and diving suits, not business attire. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Did you arrive? Remember, just stick to the presentation slides. Don't go off script with your 'the oceans are dying' speech. Damian Maxwell funds practical solutions, not passionate causes." Olivia sighed, texting back a quick affirmative before silencing her phone. Her sister's sudden bout of food poisoning had left Olivia as the reluctant stand-in for this crucial presentation, one that could determine whether their struggling conservation center survived another year. Just deliver the presentation, get the funding.
Leave, she reminded herself.
Stepping through the revolving doors into a lobby that screamed money and power. Both things the Clearwater Marine Conservation Center desperately needed and conspicuously lacked. At the reception desk, a perfectly polished woman looked up. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment with Mr. Maxwell. I'm Sophia Kane." "Well, actually, I'm her sister Olivia. I'm standing in for her today." She winced at her own awkward honesty. Sophia would have smoothly played the part without unnecessary explanations. The receptionist's practiced smile didn't waver. "Mr. Maxwell is expecting Ms. Kane in the executive suite. Elevator Bank A, 40th floor." The elevator rose with stomach-dropping swiftness, each floor increasing Olivia's anxiety. Damian Maxwell had a reputation for ruthlessness in business matched only by his recent calculated pivot toward green investments. Sophia had spent weeks crafting the perfect pitch that would appeal to Maxwell Industries' newfound environmental conscience without triggering any actual corporate discomfort. "Mr. Maxwell, we'll see you now," announced an assistant when Olivia reached the executive floor. She entered an office that could have housed her entire research facility. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the city and the distant coastline where her conservation center operated on a shoestring budget. Damian Maxwell stood with his back to the door, silhouetted against the panoramic view, phone pressed to his ear. "The projected returns aren't sufficient," he was saying, his tone clipped and decisive. "Restructure or liquidate, those are the options." He ended the call and turned. Olivia's breath caught involuntarily. Business magazines hadn't exaggerated Damian Maxwell's commanding presence. Tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual salary, he carried himself with the unmistakable confidence of someone accustomed to power. Dark hair with a touch of silver at the temples framed features that might have been sculpted. Strong jaw, penetrating blue eyes currently fixed on her with laser focus. "Ms. Kane," he said, extending his hand. "You're not what I expected." His directness caught her off guard. "I'm not actually Sophia Kane," she admitted, shaking his hand briefly. "I'm her sister Olivia. Sophia has food poisoning and sent me to deliver the presentation in her place. I'm a marine biologist with the conservation center she's consulting for." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps even interest, replacing the practiced corporate mask. "Most people would have simply pretended to be their sister," he observed, gesturing for her to take a seat across from his imposing desk. "I'm a terrible liar," Olivia replied with a small, nervous laugh. "Besides, I couldn't possibly pass for Sophia. She's the polished professional consultant. I'm the one usually covered in seawater." A hint of amusement touched his eyes, though his expression remained businesslike. "And yet here you are, about to ask for $5 million in conservation funding." "Actually, the presentation requests $3 million, Olivia corrected automatically, then winced. "Sorry, I didn't mean to sound ungrateful. $3 million would be transformative for our work." Damian leaned back, studying her with unexpected intensity. "Tell me why I should invest in your conservation center, Ms. Kane. The real reason, not the carefully crafted pitch your sister prepared." The question caught her off guard. This wasn't how Sophia had told her the meeting would go. She was supposed to deliver the prepared slides, answer a few predictable questions, and leave the negotiations to her sister's follow-up meeting. Because we're running out of time, Olivia found herself saying, abandoning the script entirely. The coral reefs were trying to support thousands of marine species and provide coastal protection for communities that can't afford to lose them. We're doing critical research on reef restoration techniques, but we're operating out of a converted boathouse with equipment held together by marine-grade duct tape and sheer determination. She opened the portfolio, but instead of the sleek presentation inside, she pulled out her own worn research journal, flipping to pages of handwritten notes and underwater photographs. This is what we're fighting to save. Not abstract concepts, but living systems. Something unexpected happened then. Damian Maxwell actually looked at her journal, examining the photographs with genuine attention. He asked questions about specific species and restoration techniques, displaying knowledge that suggested his environmental interest wasn't entirely for show. Their conversation was interrupted by movement in Olivia's peripheral vision. For the first time, she noticed an elaborate aquarium built into the wall of his office. Her professional instincts immediately assessed its inhabitants, and her expression shifted from animation to concern. "Is something wrong?" Damian asked, noticing her distraction. "That's a Hawaiian cleaner wrasse in your aquarium," she said, moving toward the tank. "They're nearly impossible to keep in captivity. They have specialized dietary needs and territorial requirements that can't be properly met in a closed system. And they're being harvested to dangerous levels for the aquarium trade." She turned to face him, professional ethics overriding her awareness that she was criticizing a potential donor's personal choices. "Whoever sold you this fish was irresponsible. They typically starve in captivity, no matter how expensive the setup." Instead of the offense she expected, Damian appeared thoughtful. "The aquarium designer assured me all species were sustainably sourced and appropriate." "They lied," Olivia stated flatly. "I can recommend ethical alternatives if you're interested." A silence followed, during which Olivia mentally calculated how many months the center could survive without Maxwell funding, now that she'd torpedoed their chances. "I have a lunch meeting in 20 minutes, Damian finally said, closing her journal and returning it. "Join me." "Excuse me?" Olivia blinked in confusion. "Join me for lunch," he repeated. "I'd like to hear more about your work. The unfiltered version, not the investor presentation. And apparently I need advice about my aquarium." "I didn't come prepared for a lunch meeting," Olivia protested weakly, gesturing to her hastily assembled outfit. Damian's expression softened slightly, a genuine smile transforming his features. "I'm not interested in your outfit, Ms. Kane. I'm interested in your mind. In my world, people rarely say what they actually think. Your honesty is refreshing." Against all professional judgment, Olivia found herself nodding. "All right, lunch then." As they left his office, Damian instructed his assistant to contact a marine specialist about the aquarium immediately. It was a small gesture, but one that suggested he might actually listen to the rest of what she had to say. Stepping into the elevator beside him, Olivia felt a strange mix of nerves and exhilaration. This meeting had veered dramatically from Sophia's careful script, but perhaps that wasn't entirely a bad thing. After all, oceans didn't follow scripts either. They adapted, they surprised, they transformed, and sometimes they brought together elements from entirely different worlds. Beneath the surface, the upscale restaurant occupied the entire 39th floor of Maxwell Tower, offering panoramic views of the coastline that Olivia typically saw from much closer proximity. As they were escorted to a private table by the window, she felt distinctly out of place among the power-suited executives in designer outfits. "You're uncomfortable," Damian observed as they settled into their seats. "That obvious?" Olivia smiled ruefully. "The last restaurant I ate at had plastic chairs and served fish tacos on paper plates." "Excellent fish tacos?" "The best in the county," she confirmed, relaxing slightly at his unexpected interest. "They're caught sustainably by local fishermen following our conservation guidelines." The waiter approached with practiced deference, but before he could recite the day's specials, Damian asked, "Do you serve anything sourced according to sustainable fishing practices?" The waiter hesitated, clearly unprepared for the question. "Perhaps the chef could recommend something that meets ethical harvesting standards," Olivia suggested gently, saving the flustered server. As the waiter retreated to consult the kitchen, Damian studied her with renewed interest. You're much more direct than your sister led me to believe the conservation center would be. Sophia approaches conservation from a business and policy perspective, Olivia explained. I'm in the water every day, seeing the direct impacts of what we're fighting against. It creates a certain urgency. Tell me about that, he requested, leaning forward slightly. Not the presentation version. What you actually experience. For a moment, Olivia hesitated. Was this genuine interest or a calculated tactic? Damian Maxwell hadn't built an empire by accident. He was known for identifying people's passions and leveraging them. Yet something in his attentive posture seemed authentic. She decided to take the risk. Last week we rescued a loggerhead turtle entangled in discarded fishing gear, she began, her voice softening with the memory. She'd been dragging it for so long that the lines had cut into her flippers. When we got her to our facility, she was exhausted, dehydrated, infected. Olivia's hands moved expressively as she spoke, her professional reserve melting away. We worked through the night, cleaning wounds, administering antibiotics, rehydrating. There's a moment when you're not sure if they'll make it, and then suddenly, they look at you with this recognition, this will to survive. Damian listened without interruption, his food untouched as she continued. That turtle is recovering now. We named her Persistence, but for everyone we save, dozens don't make it. The problems are systemic: overfishing, pollution, habitat destruction. Our center is fighting with limited resources against forces with seemingly unlimited funding. She stopped abruptly, realizing she'd been speaking passionately for several minutes. I'm sorry. You asked a simple question, and I delivered a sermon. Don't apologize for caring, Damian replied, his usual business facade softening. It's refreshingly genuine. Their lunch continued with surprising ease, conversation flowing between marine conservation challenges and more personal topics. Olivia learned that Damian had grown up near the coast, developed his first business venture at 19, and maintained a private collection of rare nautical maps. In turn, she shared stories about her research expeditions and the childhood snorkeling trip that had determined her future path. Your conservation center, Damian said as they finished dessert. I'd like to see it. Olivia nearly choked on her coffee. You want to visit Clearwater Marine Conservation Center? Why? I never invest in anything I haven't seen firsthand, he replied simply. Is tomorrow morning possible? Tomorrow? I suppose, but she hesitated. It's not what you're used to. We're operating out of a converted boathouse with equipment that's mostly donated or salvaged. It's not impressive in the conventional sense. I'm not looking for conventional, Damian countered, a hint of challenge in his eyes. Unless you'd prefer I make my decision based solely on your sister's presentation? Tomorrow morning would be fine, Olivia conceded quickly. But you might want to reconsider your footwear. Our facility tends to be damp. His smile transformed his features again, making him momentarily seem more accessible, less the untouchable CEO. I'll come prepared, Miss Kane. Olivia, she corrected. If you're going to wade through my workplace, we might as well use first names. Olivia, he repeated, her name sounding somehow different in his voice. Then you should call me Damian. As they parted ways in the building's lobby, Olivia felt oddly energized despite the day's stress. The meeting had gone nothing like Sophia's careful plan, yet somehow felt more promising. Whether that promise was for the conservation center's future or something more personal remained unclear. A question Olivia wasn't entirely ready to examine. The following morning dawned clear and bright. Perfect conditions for the conservation center's daily operations. Olivia arrived early to prepare her team for their unusual visitor, only to find Damian Maxwell already in the parking lot, leaning against a vehicle that seemed comically out of place in their humble surroundings. You're early, she greeted him, noting with surprise that he'd actually taken her advice about appropriate attire. Instead of his immaculate business suit, he wore khaki pants and a simple button-down shirt, though the casual outfit probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. I believe in seeing places as they actually operate, not in staged presentations, he explained, following her toward the weathered building that housed their facility. The conservation center occupied a former commercial boathouse, converted through years of volunteer labor and creative repurposing. Solar panels covered the roof, donated by a green energy startup before it went bankrupt, and the dock extended into a protected cove perfect for rehabilitation activities. It's not much to look at, Olivia acknowledged as they approached. but it's strategically located between three critical habitat zones, and the natural cove creates ideal conditions for rehabilitation work. Inside, the center hummed with morning activity. Researchers monitored tanks containing recovering marine creatures, volunteers prepared for educational tours, and the rehabilitation team reviewed treatment plans for their current patients. "Olivia," called Marco, their head veterinarian, waving from the medical area. "Persistence's blood work looks great. Infections responding to treatment." "That's the turtle you mentioned yesterday?" Damien asked, following as she headed toward the medical pool. "Yes, would you like to meet her?" The loggerhead turtle floated calmly in her rehabilitation tank, her injured flippers wrapped in protective bandages. When Olivia approached, the turtle swam closer, recognizing her caretaker. "Amazing creatures," Olivia explained as they observed her. "They've survived relatively unchanged for millions of years, yet now face extinction because of human activity within just decades." "What's her prognosis?" Damien asked, surprising Olivia with what seemed like genuine concern. "Good if we can prevent infection in the deeper wounds. She'll likely lose some mobility in her right front flipper, but should be able to return to the wild in a few months." As they continued the tour, Olivia introduced Damien to her team and explained their various research projects, coral restoration techniques, microplastic impact studies, endangered species monitoring. Throughout each explanation, he asked surprisingly informed questions, revealing knowledge that went beyond superficial interest. "Your operation is impressive," he commented as they examined the cramped research lab where two scientists worked on water quality analysis, "especially considering your resource limitations." "We make do," Olivia replied, pride evident in her voice. "Everyone here believes in the work enough to overcome the challenges." Their tour was interrupted by a call from their coastal monitoring network. A juvenile, humpback whale had been spotted struggling close to shore, possibly entangled in debris. "I need to go," Olivia apologized, already moving toward the response boat. "Our marine mammal specialist is off today, and we're the nearest qualified rescue team." "Take me with you," Damien said unexpectedly. She paused, assessing his serious expression. "This isn't a tourist excursion. It could be dangerous, uncomfortable, and there are no guarantees of a good outcome." "I understand," he replied, matching her directness. "But I want to see your work in action, not just your facility." Against her better judgment, Olivia nodded. "Stay exactly where we tell you. Follow instructions immediately and be prepared to get wet." 20 minutes later, their response boat approached the reported coordinates. The juvenile whale was clearly visible, its movements restricted by what appeared to be abandoned fishing nets wrapped around its tail flukes. "Assessment protocol," Olivia called to her team as they positioned the boat at a safe distance. Two team members began documenting the whale's condition with cameras and specialized equipment, while another prepared the cutting tools they would need. "The entanglement isn't immediately life-threatening," Olivia explained to Damien, who observed with focused attention, "but it's restricting movement and will cause increasing injury if not removed." "What's the plan?" he asked, watching the team's coordinated preparations. "Controlled approach, documentation, careful cutting to free the flukes without causing additional stress or injury," she replied, pulling on her wetsuit. "I'll be in the water with Marco. The rest of the team maintains position and monitors the whale's reactions." What followed was 2 hours of careful, methodical work, approaching the distressed whale, establishing a non-threatening presence, and meticulously cutting away the entangling material. Throughout the procedure, Olivia remained focused yet calm, communicating clearly with her team and responding to changing conditions with practiced expertise. From his position on the boat, Damien watched with growing appreciation. This was Olivia in her element, confident, skilled, and completely authentic. The nervous woman from his office had transformed into a commanding professional whose every movement reflected years of training and genuine dedication. When the final pieces of netting fell away and the young whale swam free, cheers erupted from the team. Olivia emerged from the water, exhaustion and triumph mingling in her smile as she pulled herself back onto the boat. "That," she said breathlessly, "is why we do this work." Damien handed her a towel, their fingers brushing momentarily. "It was remarkable," he said quietly, genuine admiration evident in his voice. On the return journey, Olivia expected Damien to retreat to dry comfort, perhaps making polite conversation from a distance. Instead, he helped the team stow equipment and listened intently as they discussed the rescue's technical aspects. "Your team operates with extraordinary efficiency," he commented as they approached the dock, "especially considering your equipment constraints." "We improvise," she replied, gesturing toward their modified cutting tools and homemade response gear. "Most of our specialized equipment is either donated, adapted from other uses, or built by volunteers with engineering backgrounds." Back at the center, while the team processed documentation from the rescue, Damien and Olivia sat on the dock, the afternoon sun warming them after the chill of the ocean. "So," Olivia ventured, "now that you've seen the good, the bad, and the very wet aspects of our operation, what do you think?" Damien considered his response carefully. "I think you're achieving remarkable results with inadequate resources. I think your team has passion that can't be manufactured or incentivized with corporate bonuses." He turned to face her directly. "And I think Maxwell Industries would be fortunate to support your work." Hope surged through Olivia, but caution quickly followed. "That's incredibly generous. But I have to ask why. Your company hasn't historically prioritized marine conservation." "Perhaps it's time we did," he replied simply. "The proposal requested $3 million. I'm prepared to offer $5 million, with appropriate oversight to ensure effective use, of course." Olivia's excitement froze as an uncomfortable realization surfaced. "Appropriate oversight meaning what, exactly?" "Standard procedures for major investments," Damien explained. "Quarterly reviews, milestone requirements, integration with our corporate environmental initiatives." "Integration with Maxwell Industries' corporate initiatives," Olivia repeated slowly. "Like the resort development project planned for Coral Bay?" Something shifted in Damien's expression, surprise followed by careful neutrality. "You're familiar with that project?" "Every conservation organization on this coast is familiar with it," Olivia replied, rising to her feet. "Your company is planning to build a luxury resort complex directly adjacent to one of the most fragile reef ecosystems in the region, the one our center is specifically working to protect. The development has received all necessary environmental approvals," Damien stated, his tone shifting toward the business persona she'd first encountered. "Approvals from regulatory agencies that have consistently demonstrated willingness to prioritize development over conservation." Olivia countered, her earlier warmth disappearing. "That project will devastate the marine ecosystem, regardless of what your impact statements claim." They stood facing each other, the earlier connection evaporating in the tension between them. "Is this why you visited our center?" Olivia asked, pieces falling into place. "To buy positive publicity while your company destroys what we're trying to save? Fund the turtle rescues so people don't notice when you obliterate their nesting beaches? That's not fair," Damien objected, genuine frustration breaking through his professional facade. "I came because I was impressed by your passion and wanted to understand your work. The resort project is separate from my interest in your conservation efforts." "Nothing is separate when it comes to ecosystems," Olivia replied, the scientist in her overtaking personal feelings. "Everything is connected, the reefs, the beaches, the water quality. You can't destroy one part and pretend to save another." For a moment, Damien looked as though he might argue further, but instead his expression closed. "I should go. Thank you for the tour and the educational experience." "Thank you for your time," Olivia responded formally, professionalism masking her disappointment. For a few hours she had glimpsed a different side of Damien Maxwell, someone who might actually care about more than profit margins and corporate expansion. Clearly, she had been mistaken. As his expensive vehicle disappeared from the parking lot, Olivia turned back toward the center, where real work continued regardless of corporate politics or personal disappointments. She had a turtle to treat, research to complete, and an ecosystem to protect, with or without Maxwell Industries' support. Yet the memory of Damien's genuine smile when the whale swam free lingered uncomfortably in her mind, a puzzle piece that didn't fit with the corporate villain narrative she now wanted to believe. Uncharted waters. 2 weeks passed without word from Damien Maxwell or Maxwell Industries. Olivia threw herself into the conservation center's work, telling herself the silence was expected. She had essentially accused one of the country's most powerful CEOs of environmental hypocrisy to his face, hardly the way to secure corporate funding. You've checked your email 12 times in the last hour, observed Marco, the center's veterinarian, as they monitored Persistence's recovery. Waiting for something important? Just administrative updates, Olivia lied, focusing deliberately on the turtle's swimming pattern. Persistence is using her injured flipper more today. That's encouraging. Marco studied her rather than the turtle. Sophia called this morning. Apparently, you've been avoiding her messages about the Maxwell Industries proposal. Olivia sighed. Her sister had been understandably frustrated to learn about the unorthodox meeting and subsequent whale rescue excursion. Both dramatic departures from her careful strategic approach. I'll call her back, Olivia promised vaguely. She also mentioned you've been invited to the Maxwell Industries annual conservation gala this Saturday, Marco continued casually. As the center's representative, this caught Olivia's attention. That's impossible. After our last conversation, I'm probably banned from all Maxwell properties. The invitation arrived by courier this morning, Marco replied, handing her an elegant envelope he'd apparently been carrying. Very fancy. Apparently you made quite an impression. The invitation was printed on heavy cardstock, requesting her presence at Maxwell Tower's Grand Ballroom for an evening celebrating environmental leadership and conservation innovation. Handwritten at the bottom in strong, decisive script was a personal note. Your perspective would be valuable. DM. I can't possibly attend, Olivia protested, even as she traced the handwritten note with her fingertip. It would be completely hypocritical to sip champagne at a corporate greenwashing event while they proceed with the Coral Bay development. Actually, Marco said hesitantly, there's been a development with that project. The Conservation Assessment Committee received notice yesterday that Maxwell Industries has requested a comprehensive independent environmental impact review. All development activities are paused pending the results. Olivia stared at him in disbelief. That's unexpected. Those reviews can take months, sometimes years. It effectively halts the project, which makes one wonder what changed the great Damien Maxwell's mind, Marco mused, giving her a meaningful look. One whale rescue wouldn't transform a corporate mindset, Olivia objected, though uncertainty colored her voice. Maybe not, Marco agreed. Or maybe seeing conservation work firsthand with someone who actually cares about it makes a difference. He nodded toward the invitation. Only one way to find out.